I'm Mark Sponsler, and welcome to the Stormsurf Video Surf Forecast, the week starting Sunday, February 7th. Stormsurf, waves, weather, buoys, altimetry, snow, temperatures, El Nino, weather analysis, real data for outdoor people, all the time, no hype. Looking at significant wave heights for the North Pacific Ocean, we don't see a whole lot going on. Remnants of a small gale that was here previously off the Kuril Islands is fading while pushing into the Bering Sea, and some sort of nondescript fetch associated with low pressure north of Hawaii is generating 19-foot seas aimed north, but at the moment, a quiet pattern is in play. The good news is, it isn't supposed to last too long. As usual, we'll start by looking at jet stream winds. These winds of about 30,000 feet help support the formation of gales when they form, help direct their track. We're looking for a trough that is a dip in the jet, and we really don't even see one. Maybe sort of there, but what you want to see is the jet sort of diving to the south, and what that helps do is create a counterclockwise flow aloft and at the ocean surface. That's the hallmark of low pressure, and if low pressure is deep enough, it generates winds. If winds are strong enough, they generate seas. If seas are high enough, they generate swell, and swell, as it radiates away from the fetch area and hits your beach, turns into surf. Alright, so right now we've got winds, 180 knots over Japan, but not really moving much over the Pacific Ocean. And the jet kind of appears to be in a transition state. It's pushing pretty good to almost a point north of Hawaii. It sort of looks like it wants to split there, but it doesn't. It kind of looks like it finally does split here. It tries right there to split. I mean, it's just kind of a mess at the moment. But let's put this into motion. You see quickly as we get into Monday morning, winds build to 210 knots, pushing well, or at least well organized, pushing off Japan, making it not quite to the date line. But as we get a little bit deeper into this, let's say maybe Tuesday, then we have a defined trough starting to develop off the Kuril Islands. Now still limited to the far northwest Pacific, with kind of a fragmented mess east of there. But as we get into, say, Wednesday, look at that, the jet is completely consolidated, well-defined, supporting a trough over the date line, and then starting to split just east of the date line, but even not too much there. As we get into really about Thursday, things start looking pretty good. A well-defined trough developing, filling the entire northwestern Pacific, winds 200 knots in one pocket. The split point moves to a point north of Hawaii, and it sort of looks like we're back in business. The northern branch of the jet starts pushing into northern California. That could actually offer some potential for weather. And then the other piece of this is the southern branch pushing over Hawaii, probably going to make for weather there. That trough continues as we get into Thursday night and into Friday, still looking pretty solid, offering good potential for gale development, both aloft and down at the ocean surface, and some version of that holding at least into Saturday. And then also notice, let's go back just a little bit. You notice a trough developing in the Gulf of Alaska. Not so much for swell production, but it almost looks like an atmospheric river event with the jet pushing right into the, we'll say, North and Central California coast as we get into Saturday and Sunday of next week. And we'll keep going here. Then things the jet's actually consolidated the whole way across the Pacific. Yeah, a little bit of energy bleeds off here just west of Hawaii, but not a horrendous looking jet stream flow. And even as we get into Sunday night, early Monday, a week from now, just not a lot of wind energy. We need more wind energy pushing into the jet to feed the storm machine. All right, let's go take a look down at the ocean surface. So here we are, surface level pressure, surface level winds. Right now, as we know, not a whole lot going on. A little bit of a kind of a low pressure system off the Kuril Islands here. Another weak low pressure system north of Hawaii. And high pressure off the U.S. West Coast. No signs of not even insignificant swell production, just pretty much nothing. There was a gale that was supposed to develop off the Kuril Islands, but that's kind of just faded from the charts, not looking like much. And then somewhere in the Tuesday, we'll say night, Wednesday time frame, a certified storm is supposed to develop on the dateline, 55-knot northwest winds. Again, this is all a forecast. It's not real at this point in time. Oh, but building to, that's not 55, that's 60-plus knots there as we get into Wednesday morning. That's a pretty solid system. Pushing to the dateline with 50-plus knot winds Wednesday night, and then fading, not making it much east of there. But then a secondary system is supposed to start developing on Thursday off Japan, sort of rotating around the main, this is what they call a complex storm, two low-pressure centers sort of rotating around each other. But the main one here, south of it, takes over with 55-knot winds on Friday morning, to the dateline, pushing quickly off to the east. And look at it, they're consolidated now. One broad fetch of, we'll say, 30, 35-knot winds aimed well at Hawaii, and right on the front here, sort of a push of 40, 45-knot winds aimed at the U.S. West Coast into Friday night. And then notice weather pushing into the at least into Oregon and the Pacific Northwest, high pressure breaking down. Still broad fetch 30, 35-knot winds. So we get into Saturday on the dateline, rebuilding to 45 knots. This is an upgrade from even this morning's run of the model. And then as we get into Sunday, continued fetch on the dateline, and still going on into nearly Monday morning with new low pressure building off Japan. So a dramatic change. Enjoy the, at least based on what the models are suggesting, enjoy the little bit of time off, take care of business, because it kind of looks like surf is heading our way. Let's go verify that now. Let's go see the effects of the winds on the ocean surface. But first off, a quick look back in time. We're going to Thursday night, a couple days ago. Little tiny gale developed off the Kuril Islands. By small, we mean small. I mean just a pinprick on the ocean surface, a pebble hitting it, pretty much. Seas 36 feet. That was on Friday night. And then as we got into Saturday, seas down to 32 feet right here, 32.9 feet at 47 north right there. 169 east. Winds in that, maximum winds in that area about 45.6 knots, but really tiny area, not a whole lot of swell expected. And that system pushed off to the north and faded as of right now, literally nothing. But small swells in the water, pushing towards Hawaii and the U.S. West Coast. Nothing big, nothing, to really write home about, but some surf. All right, now looking forward, we know that there is something forecast. First, a failed attempt at a gale on the Monday, Tuesday time frame. But then as we get into Wednesday, things start getting interesting. Here comes our storm building. What do we say? 60, 65 knot wind. 65 knots is hurricane force. We'll take it. Wind, seas building to 44 feet and then to 51 feet. This too is an upgrade. I'm sure it will downgrade as we get closer to development time, but still, 51-foot seas, that's pretty solid indeed. Right on the date line, aimed at Hawaii and the U.S. West Coast. That's on Wednesday night. Then moderating and sort of easing east. Still seas in the 35-foot range as we get into Thursday. And then fading. Another system developing right behind that on Friday morning. Small little area, 46-foot seas. Sort of sliding east, fading out, but we know it's going to reorganize here. A broad area of, we'll call it 22 to 25-foot seas. Then 30-foot seas redeveloping on the North Dateline region to 32 feet on Sunday morning. So not huge on the secondary system, but still a broad area of, well, that yellow is 18-foot seas, so 18 to 28-foot seas over a broad area here, certainly generating more swell, lesser period swell, aimed at Hawaii and the U.S. West Coast. Things looking good and continuing even into Sunday night, almost Monday. So that is promising indeed. Local wind forecast, and just sort of the broad brush strokes right now. High pressure, 1028 millibars in the northern Gulf of Alaska, generating a gentle pressure gradient along the California coast. Over outer waters, 15-20 knot northwest winds. That's effectively California trades north of Point Conception. And a light wind regime in the Hawaiian Islands on Sunday. So we get into Monday, lighter winds along the California coast. Almost looks like a front trying to set up here north of Hawaii. Winds mixed out of the south. Let's see. Yep, and there you go. Low pressure, sort of westerly winds for the Hawaiian Islands. Let's get into Tuesday. Tuesday, relatively light northwest wind pattern along the California coast. Here comes north winds for the Hawaiian Islands on Tuesday. High pressure, Kona wind event, not looking particularly promising. Trying to move to trades as we get into Wednesday. Winds still relatively light along the California coast. Then back to pretty much a trade regime as we get into, say, Thursday, at least for a little bit for the Hawaiian Islands. Here's the beginning of the change in weather for at least the North California coast. This looks like south winds, maybe even down to Monterey Bay on Thursday. And then we get into Friday, sort of a mixed mess, a little bit of high pressure here, but trades for the Hawaiian Islands. So we get into Saturday, another system building off the Oregon coast. For the moment, southeast winds for the Hawaiian Islands, and then pretty much a mess for California as we get into Saturday night. And Sunday, trades for the Hawaiian Islands, and yet another little low as we get into Sunday night, impacting Oregon and the North California coast. So, potential rain for California, not great weather situation by next weekend. Improving situation for the Hawaiian Islands. Let's go look at precipitation. Right, precipitation forecast Sunday night. Here's California, high and dry. We're going to blast through this so this system here, early runs of the model had it actually pushing into California, producing rain. Even that has evaporated. I think it was supposed to hit on Tuesday night or Wednesday. That's all gone. Now the next hope is sometime on Thursday, rain down to Big Sur. Thursday morning, Point Conception, snow developing for the Sierra. Continuing Thursday night into Friday. Not a super heavy event, but at least some precip. Drying out momentarily. Next low builds. Saturday, the rain comes in, sweeping pretty much the same pattern. Heavier snow for the Sierra. That drying out, and we know there's possibly one more. The models show it here, but then we run out of time. This is a 7-day run. We'll go take a look at the projected snowfall totals. For Squaw Valley, about 30 inches, theoretically, if you believe the models. We'll see. Snow levels, so it's warm, nice in California, even in Northern California today. That's supposed to hold till sometime on Wednesday, and then you can see this is the top of Squaw, this is the base of Squaw. Even there, temperatures start falling, and, you know, if the Sierra is doing this, it's also doing it near the coast. So a declining temperature trend with snow levels well below the base as we get into, the 11th of February or so. What's that, like Thursday or so? And the yellow indicates potential for snow, so you get the picture. Snow, decreasing temperatures, rain at the coast, decreasing temperatures. Pretty much the same thing for Kirkwood, but more snow, 33 inches theoretically, and because they have a higher base, snow levels falling below the base even by the evening of the 8th of February and only going lower from there. Now Mammoth, a bit off the main track, main storm track, maybe 13 or 14 inches of snow. They have a nice high base at 8,000 feet, and nice and chilly there. Whatever snow they do get will stay relatively fresh given the colder temperatures and the higher elevation. All right, let's go take a look long term. What's going on with the Madden Julian oscillation, and of course El Nino or La Nina, the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So first off, we'll take a look at the MJO, the Madden Julian oscillation. This periodic weather oscillation has two phases, active phase and the inactive phase. When in the active phase, that's the one we really like, it imparts energy to the jet stream, helps fuel the development of Kelvin waves, which in turn can help kick off El Nino, and also can produce inclement weather and rain in California. All right, so the active phase of the MJO, is basically like a low-pressure system that traverses the Pacific from west to east on the equator. When it does that, it can shift trade winds around. So, right here, we're looking at data from the TAO buoy array, series of buoys that are strung across the equator, across the Pacific, used for monitoring El Nino, but we can also use them to monitor the MJO. So we're looking at the arrows here. Winds are from the east, trades strong. The longer the arrow, the stronger the wind. So pretty strong east trades blowing over the East Pacific, the Central Pacific, and then the West Pacific, this area called the Kelvin wave generation area, because when the active phase moves over here, this is the important area. And this is why we harp on the active phase of the MJO, because when it develops and sits over the West Pacific here, that's New Guinea right there, that's the equator right there. So from 135 east to the date line's at 180, a little bit over there, 170, 5 degrees north and south of the equator, just this small little patch right there. So one of our readers said it's kind of amazing how you get weather in just this one little patch and it can affect the whole planet, and absolutely it can. It is strange, eerie, but wonderful once you know what the secret is. All right, but right now, winds are strong from the east over the Kelvin wave generation area, not from the west, indicative of the inactive phase of the MJO. Or, if not that, the La Nina trend trumps whatever the MJO is doing, overrides it, and that's probably what's happening. But it's anomalies, differences from normal for this time of year. So yeah, winds are pretty strong out of the east here in the East Pacific. But you look here, these arrows are much smaller, meaning, yeah, they're strong, but they're not that much stronger than normal. Over the Central Pacific, pretty much normal. You don't see any arrows at all going east or west. Then in the Kelvin wave generation area over here, yeah, they're out of the east, but not horribly strong. And this is a 5-day average wind too, so you can't, whatever change happens, it shows up on this chart 2 or 3 or maybe 4 days later. So just keep that in mind when reading the chart. All right, so the forecast. Now this is a strange chart. Those of you that watch this video know it's the whole planet on one chart, right? And how do you read it then? Well, 180 is the date line, and the West Pacific starts here about 135 east. So this is the West Pacific here. The East Pacific is, well, California is at about 120, and then Ecuador is somewhere around 80 west, somewhere right around there. You can actually see a seam on the chart right there. So the area we're interested in, though, the Kelvin wave generation area, starts here and goes to about here. Here's where we are today. So the yellows are westerly anomalies, the blues are easterly anomalies. So when we had the mega surf in the Pacific, we had piles of easterly anomalies. Normally that just stomps on the jet stream, but because of the strength of it and some other things that we think were going on in the atmosphere, it really fed the jet stream. But now that, as soon as that fell apart, the swell machine shut down completely. As it's, there's been some storms, but nothing like what we had. And so looking forward, we don't see anything like that coming, at least for the next week. We see westerly anomalies trying to build into the Kelvin wave generation area. That is a good sign. That suggests that maybe, just maybe, La Nina is losing some strength. But we still see easterly anomalies forecast in the bulk of the Kelvin wave generation area, but not particularly strong. All right, let's look a little bit further out. So we're looking, again, for signs of the MJO, active phase of the MJO. Another way to look at that, outgoing long-wave radiation. Remember we said that the active phase of the MJO acts like a low-pressure system. Well, low pressure, if it's strong enough, generates clouds, right? And clouds block out the sun, and that's what this chart is effectively showing you. The blues are negative anomalies, meaning less sunlight, meaning more clouds. And what are we looking at here? Well, there's the equator right there. Right? There's South America, Central America, Australia, New Guinea there. There's Hawaii up there. So the Kelvin wave generation area is right here, and you see there's blues all over that. That's the active phase of the MJO. So that's kind of a good thing. Continues 5 days out, 10 days out, and then this is the statistic model. It says it's supposed to start moving out east of the Kelvin wave generation area. Remember, the MJO moves from west to east, so the active phase will move this way. That's the inactive phase there. And notice how it's steadily with each frame pushing off to the east. Now, let's go to look at the dynamic model. The dynamic model, yeah, says the active phase is supposed to move east, but not as quickly, pretty much locking down the Kelvin wave generation area for the next 2 weeks. That's a good thing. All right, phase diagram charts, another way of examining the MJO. All right, so it's kind of a strange chart. The circle in the middle, assume that is the North Pole and you're looking down on the North Pole. And then the MJO travels around the equator out around that, okay, from west to east, from the Indian Ocean over the maritime continent to the West Pacific, East Pacific, under the United States, across like the Gulf of Mexico, and then over the Atlantic, over North Africa, back to the Indian Ocean. The heavy dot is where the active phase of the MJO is, and the further the dot is away from the circle, the stronger the active phase is. So a moderate active phase in the West Pacific, in the Kelvin wave generation area, exactly where we want it. And the forecast per this is the statistic model, suggests it's supposed to travel east, pretty much collapse, and over just off Africa maybe 2 weeks from now. But the dynamic model, just like last week, pretty much says, no, the active phase is just supposed to sit here percolating. And to me, that suggests that maybe La Nina is losing some of its strength. I mean, it depends whether this scenario plays out or this scenario. But if the active phase can hold there for a while, it'll tamp down on trade winds a little bit, take a little bit of the energy out of La Nina perhaps, and maybe start easing us towards a more normal pattern. Probably not normal, but at least taking a little bit of the energy away from La Nina for a while. Let's look further out, the 1 month CFS model. All right, so whole planet on one chart again. Kelvin wave generation area starts about 135 east right there, and you can see westerly anomalies over in that area. Forecast sort of holding for 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks, something like that. The solid contour here is the active phase of the MJO, and you can see it started over here in the Indian Ocean, in fits and spurts working its way around the planet, at least across the Pacific, and then it typically loses a lot of definition as it gets into the Atlantic. But active phase, forecast from now for a week, probably 2 weeks, and then it's out of the Kelvin wave generation area, and you get the oranges here, and the just oranges and reds would be westerly anomalies. Not super strong, but a little bit. And then we get into February 20th, inactive phase of the MJO sets up. It would be a dotted contour here, a dotted black contour. It doesn't show it, like up there. That's the inactive phase. But you see easterly anomalies building. If nothing else, the La Nina base state taking control. In fact, see this, the purple dotted line? That is they call it the low pass filter. It's a way of sort of filtering out high or low pressure. This would be high pressure. This is the signal, the La Nina signal in the Pacific. High pressure in control of the Kelvin wave generation area. So when the active phase moves over there, it sort of stomps on the high pressure, but just gets it back to neutral pretty much. And as soon as the MJ moves out, boom, we're back to high pressure, easterly anomalies, and probably cold upwelling. Let's go look out a little bit further. All right, this is the 3 month CFS model. We don't believe a model going out a week, but hey, what the heck? Let's go take a look. It is kind of fun and entertaining to watch. See how accurate the model is. Now, the flip side here, again, whole planet on one chart, Kelvin wave generation area starting about here, going to about here. Past performance history is here. Massive easterly anomalies. That's when we had all that surf. But now westerly anomalies creeping in. Supposed to hold into maybe March or something. That's probably the active phase of the MJO right there. And then the inactive phase probably sets up here with easterly anomalies from first week of March into probably first week of April, something like that. And then I would guess that this is the active phase of the MJO. Let's take a test. Oh, there we go. All right, so the solid contour, active phase of the MJO. This, normally you'd go, this is a great time for generating surf, but because La Nina is relatively strong, this active phase is not like supercharging the atmosphere. It's just trying to get the atmosphere back to a normal state. You get these scattered westerly anomalies, but it's pretty much a neutral pattern. Then here comes La Nina. So La Nina and I'm sorry, the inactive phase of the MJO. But the inactive phase of the MJO and La Nina, when they team up, supercharge the trades and just stomp everything down, easterly anomalies. Then we have another little window as we get into April with the active phase and potentially a little bit stronger westerly anomalies. We'll see whether this plays out at all. But, you know, there's some hints that maybe La Nina is weakening. All right, the low pass filter here. Right? Low pass right there. You see that? Low pass filter. Dotted contour. High pressure bias. In control of the Kelvin wave generation area with 1, 2, 3, 4 contours on this chart. The good news is the fourth contour dies in March. The third contour dies as we get into April. We're down to 2 contours. Suggests La Nina fading. Also notice here, the low pressure bias is over the Indian Ocean, like 80 east is the center of the Indian Ocean. The peak of this is supposed to fade out around a week from now. With, you almost get some sense that low pressures try to push off to the east a little bit. The model's been saying this, but it hadn't happened yet. And also weakening in coverage. We're looking at all this, trying to get a sense of when La Nina is going to die. You'll see why we're kind of anxious around this, because this one model is painting just a very poor picture long term. But the same model that says, hey, maybe La Nina's dying is also painting some we'll get into it in a minute. Anyway, let's continue. All right, enough of the MJO stuff. Let's go look at the La Nina picture. And we start off by looking at subsurface ocean temperatures. West Pacific here, East Pacific here. These X's are sensors on the anchor lines of the TAO buoy array. They collect data, they send it off to a central processing facility, then use a model, and you can kind of try to connect the dots and get a sense of subsurface ocean temperatures. So we have the 28°C isotherm, that's warm water in the West Pacific right here. It's about stationary where it was last week. The 24° isotherm, stationary, if not maybe building a little. Now, all year, this thing has been terminated at 140 west about 2 weeks ago. Boom, it showed up, pushing the whole way into Ecuador, suggesting water temperatures warming in the East Pacific some. That is good news. That's another hint that La Nina is fading some. But let's look at the anomalies. Differences from normal for this time of year. And you see we have a lot of warm water here in the far West Pacific at depth, down 150, 175 meters. 3 degrees centigrade, 5 degrees Fahrenheit roughly. Locked steady at about, what is this, 170? Yep, 170 west. Pull that back down, there you go. So that's almost the date line. If you had the active phase of the MJO with its westerly anomalies blowing hard enough, it would take this warm water, start pushing it across the Pacific underneath the surface. And that would be a Kelvin wave that eventually would reach Ecuador, erupt at the surface, create a warm trough there. And if you have successive Kelvin waves driven by successive active phase of the MJO, that's how you can get into El Nino. We don't see any sign of that. We see a static pattern with, and if anything, strong easterly trades. But those trades actually died a couple weeks ago in the East Pacific, and you see warm water starting to develop at the surface. And that's mainly just the sun beating down on the ocean surface. There's no upwelling winds, or, you know, they're there still. Trades are there, but not as strong as they were, so it's not constant upwelling. So you get a little warmth building. We still have this big pocket of cooling water. Typical La Nina indicator, filling a good portion of the entire upper reaches of the Pacific Ocean. We have one other model here, it's a higher res model. It's now picking up on the warming water here in the East Pacific as well, but still quite a large reservoir of cool water in play. But also notice, this is a lot of warm water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 to 5 degrees above normal. Still locked solid at 170, but at some point the trades will collapse. This warm water will push east, and maybe we'll get El Nino, or maybe that'll help us return to a normal pattern. We're not saying it's going to happen anytime soon. Trades are still blowing, but there is definite signs, at least at the moment, that it's not blowing as hard as it was. sea level anomaly data. This is just another way to confirm what's going on at depth, but you do it a little bit more indirectly. You can literally take the JSON-3 satellite data, you strip out the waves, strip out the wind waves, strip out the tides, and you get a sense of, is the ocean as high, how close is it to being its normal height in terms of spherical height of the planet as compared to normal. And you see minus 15, minus 10, these are centimeters below normal. Cold water at depth contracts. When it contracts, it creates a divot on the ocean's surface. Also, when you have strong easterly trades, they'll take water here, start pushing it off to the west, and it'll start pulling up. You see plus 20, plus 25 centimeters. So the ocean is lower than normal here, higher than here, driven by not only cold wind here, but stronger than normal easterly trades. And that's when we say, well, if the trades backed off, this warm water will start sweeping off to the east. It will, but probably not anytime too soon. Upper ocean heat anomalies, just another way over time. West Pacific here, East Pacific here. The greens are temperatures below normal, reds above normal. You can clearly see the blues started building in April. That was the beginning of our La Nina. Cooler temperatures building in the East Pacific. Little break back there in July, and then just there was the peak cooling right around Halloween. Still, the cooling trend pushing off to the west, but notice little pockets of almost normal temperatures. See if we can get the scale in here so you can see that too. Not quite normal, still 0 to a half degree below normal, but trying to return to normal right here in, they call this the Nino 1.2 region, the far East Pacific on the equator, and warm temperatures building significantly in the far West Pacific. All right, sea surface temperatures. What we were watching, this is not actual temperatures, this is anomalies, differences from normal for this time of year. And you see the yellows, little bits of warming we're building on the equator. There's Ecuador right in there. But now notice, you can see it here, little thin stream of cool water running through the middle of that warm pool, kind of knocking it down, suggesting easterly winds are building a little bit and sort of erasing some of the progress that was made. But most of the real cooling water on the equator is over here in the far West Pacific. Warm water here off of Ecuador, Panama right in there, North Peru right in there. So better than we were, still not great. Let's keep digging in. Sea surface temperature trend for the past 7 days. You can see broad area, the yellow warming, or these reds and yellows, warming off of Peru, Chile, south of the equator, over a broad area out to almost 150 west. There's Hawaii right there. But here's those little cool pockets that are developing on the equator, suggesting at least a momentary rebuilding of trades in this area. Not huge, not significant, but it kind of wiped out some of the warming that we were seeing that was making us a little bit optimistic. Here's the backed off view. So there was warming that was all in here. This was almost all yellow a week ago, but now you see the little stream of cool water running through it. So easterly anomalies doing their thing. Down here, it's really only 5 degrees north and south of the equator that matters, but you see off of Chile, a broad cool pool, but the most of the cooling on the Pacific, it was over in here. It's like it's moved off to the west, and it's from a point from 140 now off to the date line and beyond. Later phases of La Nina is what we're suspecting is going on. In fact, let's go look at the actual temperatures. Oh, and the Nino 3.4 region. This is the official El Nino monitoring region. 120, 5 degrees north and south of the equator, out to 170 west. So right in there. Okay. The Nino 1.2 region is right around in here. Let's go look at the temperatures in those areas. Nino 1.2 temperatures, you can see the trend from back in November. It's been steadily upward. We had this peak here at about 1/10 of a degree above normal. What was that, a week ago, let's say? Now we're back falling down 0.381. But we suspect, hopefully, we're going to be optimistic and say we'll probably get back up here again. It just you can see the oscillations in the atmosphere, potentially driven but not completely correlatable to the active and inactive phases of the MJO as they pass over the East Pacific. Nino 1.2 region, the far East Pacific. Noisy region, not the official El Nino monitoring region. But even in this, the Nino 3.4 region, that's the official El Nino region, you can see a very slight but perceptible increase in water temperatures up to 0.639 right now. La Nina ends at a half a degree above, it starts, how do you want to say it? It ends or it starts at a half degree below normal for 5 consecutive 3-month periods, where one day does not a trend make, and we're not even in that region, but we're getting closer. And that's certainly a lot better than being down at 1.5 degrees below normal back there in like the Halloween time frame. We've risen almost 3/4 or more of a degree since then. So the trend is in the right direction. All right, so we talked about the MJO, and that sort of is a contributor or a detractor from La Nina and El Nino. Then we talked about pure La Nina or El Nino, the bigger phase, the bigger oscillation. We talked about subsurface temperatures. Then we talked about surface temperatures. Now we're going to talk about what effect have those temperatures had on the atmosphere above it. All right, so difference in pressure between Darwin, Australia, and Tahiti. It's called the Southern Oscillation Index. When you have lower than normal pressure over the Pacific, Tahiti's values start going down. The index turns negative. When you have higher pressure over Tahiti as compared to Darwin, then the index goes positive. Today's value, 13.26. The daily contribution, very noisy. You can see it goes from 0.4 to 30, all over the place. But just scanning down here for the past month, it has been positive that entire time. Today at 13.26. 30-day average takes some of the noise out of it. Where are we at? 13.14. Sorry, the camera's like right in the way here, so we sort of have to duck our head around. We were up at 17.56 there at one point. What was that? 2 weeks ago, something like that, a week and a half ago. It appears that we're going down. The 90-day average, 14.21. We were at 14.3, but looks like we're at the peak. But this is 90 days after it's happened, so this is for sure a lagging indicator. But when anything above 10 or 12, you're in La Nina territory. We are there, no doubt about it. But the thought is at some point we're going to see this starting to creep down. And if you see the SOI creeping down, if you see ocean surface temperatures start warming, and you see the jet stream doing some certain things, then you can kind of get a sense and saying, hey, La Nina maybe is fading. Here's a 30-day Southern Oscillation Index graphed out so you can see where we were. Remember, when it's negative down here, that's your tendency towards El Nino. When it's positive, that's your tendency towards La Nina. When you're positive at plus 20, that's a definite La Nina sign. Pretty much peaked out here as of January. We're falling now. The falling lines are the active phase of the MJO. So when the active phase is stronger than the inactive phase, then your average goes down. You see active phase, inactive. Active phase, inactive. And it seesaws back and forth at 30 or 40-day intervals. I mean, it's not completely regular. But we watch that to get a sense of what's going on. But the broader picture, there is an overarching oscillation, and that is the Southern Oscillation. That is the La Nina El Nino oscillation. You can see, even with the MJO being periodically active, it can't outweigh the La Nina phase that we're in right now. And then finally, the official CFS forecast for sea surface temperatures in the Nino 3.4 region. All right, so back in spring of 2020, we had almost El Nino temperatures, half a degree above normal. And then in April, the bottom fell out. Temperatures started falling. In October, we bottomed out at about 1.2 degrees. We are on the increase. Mid-January, there we are, right about minus 0.66 of a degree below normal, with this model suggesting us getting up to half a degree above normal, almost out of the La Nina range into April. And then the model, this is the disturbing part we were talking about earlier, just has temperatures crashing after we get out of spring, east anomalies assumably rebuilding strong, and back down into the hole with 1.5 degree below normal temperatures as we get into October. You can just barely, here we'll put it there so you can see it, 1.5 degrees below normal. So every other model suggests this is not true, but this model seems to have an edge on some of the other models. So we're not just out and out discounting it. We're going to keep our eyes on it, especially we're in what they call the spring unpredictability barrier between late March and early June sort of thing. The models have a hard time getting their hands on what's going on in the atmosphere. So we'll say, yeah, the model's freaking out because we're not even in that area yet, but we're approaching it. We'll give it a break, but come June, even late May, if it's still predicting this, then maybe we're falling right back into another La Nina hole for next winter. You're saying, how can you predict what what's going to happen? If you know what's going on with the MJO, you can predict things, maybe 2 months out. And with La Nina, El Nino, you can predict things 6 months or more out. So we're not quite in that window where we can say what's going to go on in the fall and winter of 2021 into 2022. But we're going to keep our eye on it because you can sometimes get a pretty good guess. And if the models start all suggesting La Nina, then you know that, again, another dry year for California, not so much surf for the North Pacific, focus on the Indian Ocean. All right. So for now, the news is semi-good. The model's predicting 2 reasonable gales forecast over the Dateline region the next 5 days to a week. So surf likely will be on the way. Some weather for Hawaii because the jet's like pushing right over them. And some weather also for California because the jet is supposed to forecast to push right into Northern California as well. Also, we didn't even talk about it, but there is forecast to be a small gale in the southeast Pacific, maybe making some southern hemi swell for California a week from Monday, Tuesday sort of time frame, but we'll keep our eyes on it. Nothing huge, but something rideable, especially if the storm track is north. A lot of these swells get shunted out from Southern California, so any swell is good swell. Longer term beyond that, hard to tell what's going to happen. We're thinking for now it's going to be use your La Nina strategy. When there's surf, you better go. Don't wait. Don't make excuses. Don't say, I'll catch the next swell. You better get what you can because you never know when the next one's coming. But the good news is we're locked and loaded with, well, not locked and loaded, but we're theoretically in a good place for maybe 2 more swells and maybe some more behind that with luck. All right, if you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up. There we go. We'd appreciate it. Comments, always welcome. We try to reply to each and every comment, and we try to be fairly reasonable about it, within a day or two, something like that. Sometimes we get some good discussions about weather events, that sort of thing. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. That helps the algorithms, helps us, and you also get automatic notifications when we post new videos, typically on Sunday evenings. If not, go to stormsurf.com. Everything you saw tonight can be found there, and much, much more. Build your skills, watch the charts, and then check them with a video on every Sunday. All right, well, thank you for watching. We'll do this again next Sunday, same time, same channel. See you then. Bye-bye.